So for today, I've written this message that, to be honest, it took me a while to write down, just because I was debating with God a little bit of whether I should be speaking on this, knowing where I'll be speaking. And so let me rephrase that a little bit. This place to us is so important. And we have this place, for my wife and I, this place, we keep it to such a high standard that when we come and when we do minister, we want to give it our best, because you guys, for this is just your church. But for us, this is what we call our Ebenezer. And what that means is, in 1 Samuel 6, it says that the people of Israel built an altar called Ebenezer. What it meant is it's a reminder of how good God has been. A reminder of all the battles that they have won, a reminder of where they came out of and where they're at right now. It was just a reminder. So this is just your church, but to us, this is an Ebenezer, because this is where we fought some battles, and this is where we've won some battles. This is where we've come in with a lot of problems, and we come out with faith into everything that God has called us to. So every time I come into this place, I honor this place, and with that, I honor your pastors. How many are thankful for your pastors? Pastors Aaron and Aaron Cody, some of the most amazing pastors. I don't say that, to be honest. When I get invited to preach, I just don't say that like, hey, these are the greatest pastors in every church, because then it wouldn't be real. So I just keep it for a few, and Pastor Aaron and Aaron are one of my favorite. And so you guys are especially blessed to have those pastors, and we're especially blessed to be here with you. So before I forget, I'm going to bring this, kind of an illustration that I will have later on. But how many are excited for December? Is anyone here excited for December? Where are my Christmas people? Those hands went right up, right? It's like joy to the world, yes. Well, to be honest, I'm not a Christmas person. I'm more of a Thanksgiving person. Thanksgiving is kind of my style. To me, Thanksgiving is an expression of God on the table, overabundance, right? Like over and above. It's just amazing. I love it that at Thanksgiving you can say weird things like I'm on my fourth plate and no one says anything weird about it. Like how many are you are fourth platers here, right? You just go all in right there. I saw that hand go right up. It still smells like turkey. I mean, it's amazing. So, but we are in December, or close to December, and there's a song, apart from Mariah Carey's song, but there is a song that comes up every time it's December. It's Joy to the World. Right? It's just joy to the world, and it just brings about this mood about December where it's a happy time. It's a time of celebration. It's a time where we're gonna get gifts, right? It's a time where we're gonna see other people and just have a good time. And what was it? 2 days ago, I was at Target with Carolina, my wife, whom I'm excited to have with me, because every time she's with me, I just preach better. It just happens. At least I'll preach more biblically because she keeps me in check. So we were at Target, and I get a text from my dad. So if you ever get to meet my dad's an introvert. He's not a guy to just like joke around just because. He keeps it serious. He keeps it in control. So he sends me this text. He's like, hey, I have a problem. I was like, ooh, what happened? And it's so stupid, but he sends me a text. He's like, I've mixed the water and Red Bull, and I poured Red Bull on my coffee today. And it was like, I was halfway to work before I noticed I left my car. So I stare at it, and I'm like, this is a joke. Like, my dad's joking with me right now. Like, this is unexpected. He goes on to the next one. He's like, I've also been reading an anti-gravity book, and I just can't put it down. So, no, listen, this is the cheesiest thing that is coming out of my, then he goes about, is like, hey, and if your man can't support your fruit jokes, you got to let that man go. I'm like, what is happening? And so I start texting jokes back, and I start laughing there. And all of you know how Target is and Walmart is now. And, we keep it serious because apparently if you laugh, you'll spread stuff. And so you can't even laugh. And I'm laughing. Carolina's asking me, like, what's happening? I was like, these are the cheesiest jokes. I just can't stop laughing. Like, I'm so old now. I love these jokes. So anyway, while I'm there, it just comes to my heart. God just spoke to me at that moment. It's like, I want to restore joy. In a year filled with problems, I want to restore joy. And he reminds me of a verse in Psalms 51, verse 12, where the psalmist is asking God, and he's asking God the following. He's like, God, restore to me the joy of my salvation, of your salvation, and make me willing to obey you. My prayer for today is that God may restore our joy, that our joy may be full. And what that means is not that you just come out here just laughing as like, oh, why are you laughing? I have no idea, but it was funny. I want us to have that type of joy where God is real in our life. And because he is real, we get to be at peace. We get to have joy no matter what is happening around us. Because we have acquired in him something that the world can't take away. We have acquired a perspective in God that no problem can take away. We have acquired a reality in God that no problem, no pandemic, no social whatever can take away. And that is my prayer for us today, that we learn to have joy in him. Because when you have joy in him, you get to live a life that is not affected by circumstances, that it could be attacked and circumstances can come, but it's not affected by circumstances. You're not shaken by what the devil can do or what people can say or what things you have or what you don't have, because you're grounded in him. And this is where I want us to take you. I want us to take you today. And this is why I believe that as we speak on this specific person, and his name is Jesus, you've probably heard of him. And I'm not going to be pushy today. I'm just going to speak about Jesus. And I think as we speak about Jesus, our joy will be full. Why do I say this? Because from the beginning of time, even when the angels came to announce that Jesus was going to be born, it says in Luke chapter 2, verse 10, but the angel reassured them, don't be afraid, he said, I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. And then they go on to explain that Jesus was going to be born. See, from heaven, there is this message that is being sent out. And it is when you hear about Jesus, you will be filled with joy. When you start noticing Jesus in your life, you will be filled with joy. The heavens are proclaiming, look to Jesus if you want to be happy in this imperfect world. Look to Jesus. So at the mention of Jesus, angels started praising, shouting. They even shout, peace to men, peace on earth to men of goodwill. This concept of peace that is written here means nothing missing and nothing broken. See, when you see Jesus, you start noticing that you get to live a life where in him nothing will be missing and nothing will be broken. And whatever is missing and whatever is broken wasn't meant to be in your life anyway. And whatever is missing and whatever is not in your life anymore is just something that God doesn't need in order for you to be happy. So you don't need it in order to be happy as well. All we need is more of him. Why else is it important to talk about Jesus? Because Jesus is not only proclaimed as him that will bring joy to the earth, joy to the world, but Jesus is also the guy that brings joy to God himself. See, it says in Matthew 3, verse 17, and a voice from heaven said, this is my dearly loved son who brings me great joy. So this is the guy. Jesus is the guy who makes God laugh. Jesus is the guy who brings joy to God. And God is saying, hey, if you listen to him, that is the guy that brings me joy. Listen to him so that your joy may be full. I want us to come closer to the reality of Jesus. And the reality of Jesus is something that can't just be expressed in one message. But the reality of Jesus is something that we live out every day. The idea that wherever you are, Jesus is there too. The idea that whatever you're going through, Jesus is there as well. The idea that no matter what is happening around you, Jesus is still inside you. And greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. That you get to smile in a world full of pain because Jesus is with you. I think some of us have to remember what it was to smile. I heard a guy say, we think, I actually wrote it down because I thought it was funny. He says, your teeth are not quarantined. You get to show them to the world. Even though some teeth look like they're socially distanced, right? But you still get to smile. Like you still get to laugh. And as we listen to the message of Jesus, not only today, but in general, be reminded that he is with you now. That he is with you wherever you are. And that reality, no one can take away. That is something that money cannot buy because Jesus bought it with his own blood. Access to the Father, which is then something that money, people, even the devil cannot take away. And that is where we are grounded and that is where we're found. Are we here today? So Jesus affirms that he came so that our joy would be full. In John chapter 15, verse 11, it says, I have told you these things so that you will be filled with joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. Say that with me, my joy. Say it with me, my joy will overflow. And I know sometimes when we start speaking about joy, we're thinking, oh, here we go. The crazies will run and the people will shout. And if that happens, it happens. But this is something that's not based on the message. This is something that I want to be based on our life. That whenever you are on a Monday, whenever you are in your own normal life, you can still have joy in him. So joy is more than an experience. Joy is a reality of Jesus. So John 15, the first 11 verses, Jesus goes on to explain how you can access this joy. So he says, guys, I have come so that your joy will be full, so that your joy will overflow. Well, then the question is, well, how can I access this joy? If you came, Jesus, to give me joy, what do I have to do so that this can happen, so that I can be joyful? He gives us 11 verses on how to be joyful, on how to access this joy so that our joy may be full. And I'm not going to read them all, but there is a word that comes up in every verse, from verse 1 to verse 11. It's the word abide, or it's the word remain. It says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And if you abide in me, or if you remain in me, then you will get fruit. If you abide in me, then you will remain in me, then you will be blessed. If you abide in me, if you remain in me, then it will be good unto you. If you abide in me, if you remain in me, if you abide, if you remain, if you abide. And he says it 11 times, and then he concludes, and if you do that, then your joy will be full. So the concept is easy if we only learn to abide, to remain, to position ourselves. See, positioning is key. Positioning in everything is key. If I wanted to pour a glass of water and I want the water to go there, but I'm over here, what does that cause? It causes anxiety to some people, right? Causes some people to be like, what are you doing? Well, I need to position myself better. Instead of pouring it over here, if I could just move myself to where it works, then it'll be all right. And the mess of the life will go away. Positioning is key. Same thing with shampoo. Shampoo is good. Everyone say that with me. I think some people need to hear this. Shampoo is good, right? Just say it with me. Shampoo is good. Right? Shampoo, but if you're shampooing at the office, it's just weird. So shampoo is good, but shampoo is good in the shower, right? Positioning is key. Positioning is key in sports. If you want to score the touchdown, you at least have to be on the field for there to be a possibility. You can't be mad. It's like, I haven't scored a touchdown in my life and you're not showing up to the game. See, positioning is key. Positioning for everything is key. If you want to propose to your girlfriend, at least make sure your girlfriend is in front of you. Positioning is key. Because you could have the ring, you could be kneeling down, but if she's not in front of you and someone else is, it's gonna be weird. Positioning is key. Everyone say that with me. Positioning is key. So if we do want to live the life that produces joy, unspeakable and full of glory, we need to learn to position ourselves, to learn to abide and to remain in Him. See, it's funny how people are like, I have not lived a joyful life in the past 3-4 months. Why? Because it's 2020. But let me ask a few questions. How much of this 2020 have you been abiding in Netflix? Ooh, that one's for me. How much of this abiding in 2020, this weird year, have we been doing sports or doing something? And this is not bad. Well, what I'm saying is, we're here complaining is like, hey, my cup is not full, my joy is not full. But we're over here. We're Netflixing, wanting to be full. We're over here trying to find our joy in things that the world can take away. When God has purposed our life to abide in Him so that when we do position ourselves, our joy may be full. Let me put it here. To, someone said it, to overflow. Overflow. And the cool thing about the overflow is that I'm not making a mess. The cool thing about the overflow is that it's still contained. See, some of the neat freaks are like, yes, no mess. I love it. I receive it. Well, it's cool, but we need to position ourselves. And I want to propose 2 things we need to position. Number 1, position our heart. That no matter where you are, no matter where you find yourself, you will position your heart. It's an attitude of you're going to look to Him no matter what. You're going to seek Him no matter what. No matter even if there's promises that are still not fulfilled, I am positioning myself so that when it does happen, I'm there. Because it seems weird. It's like literally, I feel like some of us Christians, I include myself, are shampooing ourselves outside of the shower. It's just weird. We're like doing what we're supposed to do, but we're not doing it where we're supposed to be doing it. And so then it just comes off weird, right? Like we're praying in the midst of the problem. That's good, but we should be praying outside of the problem as well. We should learn to abide, not just to escape the problems. We should learn to abide as a lifestyle. Are we here? So positioning matters. So we position our heart. So we start praying from a position of being in His presence and being aware of Him. The beginning of this year, well, actually last year, we were prophesied a few times about being a blessing in the world. I'm talking personally. You know, we would be scattered all over the world, and we would go and we would preach. And this was our calling. This still is our calling. You know, we're going to do this. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do missions, and we're going to preach, and we're going to bless, and we're going to go all over. The problem is this thing called quarantine. Has this happened to you yet? Where you're quarantined, and so you're called to the nations, but you can't go to Walmart, right? Like you're called to the nations, but you're quarantined. So this frustration starts settling in my life where I start talking to God. I'm like, God, I mean, you called us to the world, but we're quarantined. Did you forget that this was going to happen? I mean, you live outside of time. You probably should have known already. So I'm fighting with God, and the problem is that it's not only, and I'm going to drink this. Some of the overflow, thank you. The problem is, it's not only I'm not getting to travel to missions. Problem is that I'm not even getting to travel in the States. So we're not even preaching anymore. None of this is happening. It's getting to be awkward. I have to go find a job in the meantime. So the only job that was open was at this warehouse at Amazon. So I go in, and nothing wrong with working at Amazon. It's just that it's kind of hard to do missions when you're at a warehouse. And so I'm at this warehouse, and part of the introduction, our boss at that time, he comes in and is like, all right, I don't know where you guys come from, whatever, but from this day on, you're going to be stowing. And your title is you are a stow-ho. I am not joking. So from a minister to a missionary to a stoho. Eh, this is the life, that I've been called to live. So I'm fighting with God constantly. Every day I'm like, God, you call me to the nations, not to be us, that. You call me to minister. You call me to lay hands on people, not boxes. Like I'm going through all of this, just frustrated with my life. Through this frustration, I start praying a lot because I can't talk with people. I can't talk with anybody. And we got masks on, and so there's nothing to do. You can't listen to music. So I'm just praying by myself. I heard it again. Excuse me with the overflow. Is it better? This tastes less salty. So anyway, I don't know what's happening. My voice sometimes, it's here. I think it's the air. Anyway, I'm praying, and as I'm praying, something starts to happen. I noticed that the first month, I was just extremely depressed. Have you ever been depressed just because what you've been praying for is not happening? The life you want to live is not the life you're living now. So I come home after a month of praying, a month of Amazon, a month of stowing and all of it. And Carolina looks at me and she's like, I see you're happy today. Did you have a good day today? So I'm like, why would you ask that? I just came from Amazon. Like, it's like, this is not a good day. Like, why would, it's like, you just seem happy today. That's it. And I noticed something. I noticed I had been praying. And because I had been praying, I automatically started receiving a joy that obviously Amazon couldn't fulfill. I was at the fulfillment center feeling so unfulfilled. And yet, here I am, just happy. So I start praying more. I'm like, I got 10, 12 hours a day to where I'm going to start praying. So I just start praying and praying and praying. And then one morning, we had been doing this project at nights where we recollect money for families. No sé si algo caliente, pues. For families in Bogota, because Bogota has the second longest quarantine in the world, and it just stopped a few weeks ago. So it was long, and so there's families that have been losing money. They couldn't eat, and so here we are, and we're raising money for families at night. And then I wake up one day, and God's like, 30,000. That's what He says, 30,000. So I'm like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for, the 30,000. And so I tell Carolina, I'm like, Carolina, God told me He's sending us 30,000. And so I'm thinking dollars, right? $30,000. And this is just going to be what we need. It takes me a month after that. So it's been 3 months of working at Amazon, where every day I come back from work, I'm like, Carolina, did we get the check yet? And she's like, no. I was like, did you go check? No, I haven't checked. And so we're doing this game. We would stop by the mail and be like, hey, did you get it? No, we haven't got it yet. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then it all of a sudden just became part of our life, just to joke about it. Because I'm like, well, maybe I missed it. I missed it with the missions, right? So might as well. Then one day we get a call. And we get a call from this friend of ours that works at this giant company. She's like, hey, we want to support that project. And we want to send you guys 120 million pesos. So I'm like, I just sounded, I was like, ooh, that sounds weird. So I do the exchange rate, and it was $30,000 in a second. And so we get to feed over 5,000 families for a month. And that to me was an amazing, amazing blessing. But what was funny to me is I'm still a stoho. I'm still stowing boxes. And through my stowing of boxes, we got to minister to more families than we had ever done when we were actually ministering. Why? Because Jesus wants to do in your life something where He can only get the glory. Where you're not the hero of the story, but He is. Where when people see your life, they have to admit that it's God, because you're stowing boxes and yet you're reaching thousands because of Him. How many are thankful for that God that we have? So Philippians 4:4 says, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. So Paul wrote this, and when he wrote this, he was in jail. See, sometimes we think that Paul was writing this from the office of the megachurch, but he was actually writing most of these things from jail, from shipwrecked, from an island somewhere. And he's writing this to people. It's like, guys, if I can let you know something, is that you need to rejoice. He's like, if I could give you a secret of life, is rejoice and rejoice in him. And the verse before this, he mentions the book of life and people's names being written in the book of life. What he's saying is, if you could maintain an eternal perspective, you will always have a reason to rejoice. If you can just understand that Jesus is with you, if you can just understand that even if you're in jail, Jesus is there with you, and because he's there with you, you are positioned for something supernatural every day, then you have a reason to rejoice. I remember, like 3 years ago, my grandma died. And it was rough on our whole family. You know, she's the grandma that everyone loves. She's the grandma. Yeah, I'll take it. We'll see what happens. She's the grandma that everyone loves, and we were all devastated. We go. She died in Cleveland, Ohio. So we're there. And everyone is giving, like a speech. It was a close something, just for us. And after that, we're going to, and it's something that I think is only done here, but after funerals, we all go eat. And so I was like, we're going to go eat, all right. And so we're there, and we're driving to the restaurant. And my dad, he's in the car, and I remember it because he just says, well, she's in heaven. And then he starts saying, well, she's the happiest of us all now. And then he goes on to say, and we'll get to see her soon because we have Jesus. And I bet she's rejoicing now. And then he starts getting deep. It's like, and I bet she probably doesn't want to come back. And like he starts going on this whole speech where we're like, Dad, like she just died. And he's all excited there, like preaching. And we're like, Dad, this is your mom. Like, take it easy with the preaching. And he's just excited. He's like, man, my mom is in the best place in the universe. See, for those that have an eternal perspective, to us, death is promotion. Even the worst that the devil can do is still put you in a place where there is eternal joy and eternal peace with an eternal God. That's it. So anyway, this just sticks with me. So we're eating. We have to go like in a couple of hours. Our flight is leaving. All of a sudden, in our table, to me, it's supernatural. Just joy set in. We all start laughing. We all start, just talking about our grandma and how she's in heaven now and just having a good time. And then my dad's like, okay, the flight is leaving in 3 hours. We have to go. So we grab our stuff and we're going. The rest of our family is still there. And then we see the waiter comes in, and the waiter comes in with a dessert. It's a hamburger, but it's a dessert hamburger. So instead of bread, it's cookie. Instead of meat, it's, have you seen those? It's just like, instead of ketchup, it's like jam. All of this put together. So we're walking, we're like, oh my gosh, we have to try that. And so we're standing at the table. We're not even sitting down. Reaching over my aunt and uncle. We're eating this and we're laughing and stuff is spilling everywhere. My brother is just having a great time. My dad is just laughing. It's like, this is amazing. We're so Colombian. And so the waiter comes in. He sees what's happening. He's like, hey, what is happening? It's like, what are you guys celebrating? And before my brother could think, he's like, oh, my grandma died, and kept going. And I was like, what is happening? And I burst out laughing. Carolina was there. We were having a great time. That's when I saw what it is to have a supernatural joy. In a moment where you're not supposed to be happy. And it is a sad event. But when you have an eternal perspective, it's not a lasting event. See, when you have an eternal perspective, you'll get to see him again. When you have an eternal perspective and you're living for those things, you understand that this is not the end, that the devil cannot stop what God has started in your life. And what God has started in your life is eternal, so it even goes into eternity. So we start laughing. And this is what I want, for us to position ourselves, position our hearts, but also position your eyes on what truly is important. See, sometimes we think, that our joy will come based off of things or based off of people, right? And that's why we live so depressed sometimes, because things and people will never bring joy that only God can bring. And we were designed to be filled with Him, not the things of this life. Which is why when we are filled with things of this life, we will never truly acquire that joy that is meant to be ours through Him. So Paul mentions, to see and notice that our names are written in the Lamb's book of life in Philippians 4:3. And then he goes to say in Philippians 4:4, so now rejoice. And again, I say rejoice. Well, actually, Jesus mentions something similar. He sends people out in Luke chapter 10, in the first 21 verses. He sends disciples out. It's like, go minister, cast out demons, heal people, all of it. So then they go. They come back and they're like, Jesus, this is working. People are being healed. Demons are being cast out. This is amazing. And so Jesus, first of all, he like flexes on them. And he's like, well, you guys are happy because demons are fleeing. But he says in verse 18, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So he's like, you guys haven't seen anything yet. You've seen little demons, like pee-wee demons running away. I saw Satan himself fall. So I've seen true power. But then he says, hey, in verse 19, behold, I give you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. But then he says in verse number 20, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this. See, sometimes we've been so trained to rejoice at miracles that we forget what we should truly be rejoicing in. See, it's okay to be happy when prayers are answered, obviously. It's okay to be happy when miracles happen in our life, obviously. But this cannot be the basis of our joy. Why? Because not every day is going to be a good day, but every day God is good. See, not every day is going to be a perfect day with everything that's happening, but every day God perfectly will use you for His glory. He will perfectly keep you, protect you, and keep you away from whatever you need to be away from and fill you with His joy if you position yourself. So he says, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. So why am I not being pushy and being like, someone better stand up and say or whatever? Because this is something that is not acquired just through a message. This is revelation that is acquired through meditation. I've been learning that the Bible says, that the person that is blessed in Psalms chapter 1 is he who delights in the law of the Lord. And in the law, he meditates day and night. And it's this person who meditates in the law of the Lord that will bring fruit in due season and whose leaf will not wither away. And even though he's in the desert, his roots are so deep in God that he will still be producing when the rest of the world is failing. But this is born out of meditation. So I do want to give you something to chew on today. Chew on this. No matter what is happening in your life, number one, you are still going to heaven. And that truly is our victory. That truly is our reward. And number two, no matter what is happening around you, God is still inside you. And if God is still inside you, He can take a stoho and make him a missionary. And if He did that, He can take you and make in you what He's promised you that He would do. So we need to take a step back. We need to position ourselves, position our hearts, position our eyes to start seeing what truly matters in this world. See, Jesus brings back the eternal perspective. And so in verse 21, and I love this. This is becoming one of my favorite verses. In Luke chapter 10, verse 21, it says, in that hour, Jesus rejoiced in the Spirit. So Jesus had a lot to do, a lot to think about, a lot of demons to cast out, a lot of miracles to still do, a lot of bread to multiply, all of this thing. But when He mentioned the fact that their names were written in the Lamb's book of life, when He mentioned that fact that, hey, miracles might be happening and stuff, but we're all going to get to go to heaven and we all have access to His presence, that caused Him to rejoice. So we started at the beginning talking about how Jesus wants to fulfill our joy, wants to fill our joy, to overflow in our joy. He wants us to be joyful in circumstances. And then he shows us what makes him joyful. And what makes him joyful is the eternal perspective. See, if you have an eternal perspective, if you can see this every day, then every day you will have a reason to rejoice. No matter what is happening around you. And listen, I don't want to compete with stories. I bet you probably have 2020 stories as well. And we all have 2020 stories. And that's just part of our life now. But what I do know is we also have God. And when we have God, 2020 does not have to dictate how the rest of our life is going to be. 2020 might just have been a season, but the true riches and the true revelation is that we have him in every year. So no matter what 2021 brings, no matter what 2022 brings, we're still sustained by him. Reinhard Bonnke, I'm about to finish, but Reinhard Bonnke was in an interview, and for those of you that don't know who Reinhard Bonnke is, he's a missionary to Africa that lived 79 years. And through his ministry, 79 million people got to know Christ, receive Christ. He's known to have held crusades of up to 6-7 million people at one time. It literally is an ocean of people that you see. You can go on YouTube right now, just like type Reinhard Bonnke, and you'll see millions of people. So this reporter goes up to him, and he's like, could you please speak about this, the multitudes? This truly seems like God is rewarding you for something. Like, what have you done? Show us how it is that you got to get this reward of multitudes. And Reinhard Bonnke responds, and he's like, see, this is where you have it wrong. The multitudes are not my reward. The real reward for following God is God himself. He's like, that is my true reward, that I get to know him, that I get to listen to him, that he gets to speak to me and I get to respond, that I have access to him. That is my true reward. Not that millions of people are being saved. We celebrate that. But what truly brings joy in my life is that I get to know him. See, this is the same thing that Paul would say when he was in jail, when he was writing to the churches, and he was like, guys, I've reached the pinnacle of success. I've reached the pinnacle of education. I've reached the pinnacle of society, but I consider it all garbage compared to the knowledge of knowing him, compared to the knowledge of knowing him and the power of his resurrection. See, if you could only understand and grasp this revelation, that to know him is what will truly produce joy in your life. Because if you base your joy on results of this life, you will never be truly happy. But if you base your joy on the eternal truth of who God is, of who Jesus is in you, and of who you are in him, then you will always have a reason to celebrate. Because no matter what happens on this earth, you are still in Christ. No matter what happens in this life, you still have him. So what is the result of meditating in Jesus? What is the result of meditating in this truth, of positioning your heart, of positioning your eyes? The result is that you will find joy in his presence. When you position yourself in Christ, when you position yourself with the mentality that no matter where I'm traveling, no matter where I'm working, I will be connected to him. I will learn to abide. Everyone say that with me, abide. When I learn to abide, Psalm 16:11 says, you will show me the path of life, and in your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. When I learn to abide, my joy will be full. When I learn to position myself, my joy will be full. When I learn to look at what is eternal, my joy will be full. When I do position myself, I will access his presence. And in his presence, there is fullness of joy. Did you know you could have joy and be sorrowful at the same time? Like sometimes people think it's like, well, if I'm joyful, I can't have feelings, basically. But the Word of God mentions place after place after place where you can even have tears, but when you're in his presence, there's an exchange. And he'll turn your mourning into dancing, right? He'll turn your sorrows into joy. So you can come in and position yourself and be crying, but understand that when you position yourself, there's about to be a change to take place in your life. And it's that whatever caused mourning and grief in your life, he can turn it into a celebration. He can turn it into a miracle. He can turn it into a testimony. as long as you position yourself. So stop thinking about how he's going to do it and just know that he's the one to do it. If anyone is going to bring joy in your life, it's going to be him. So the result of meditating, the result of abiding, the result of positioning yourself is that you find joy in his presence. And last of all, you start to hope again. Towards the end of my tenure for working for the Antichrist, I'm just kidding, he's not the Antichrist, although he might, I don't know, some people say, whatever. Point is, towards the end of my tenure, there was another thing that we had in our hearts. Well, there was a couple of things actually. One of them is we wanted to be debt-free. And that's just something that we always wanted. And so back in June, God told us, and I wasn't making nothing really. And God told us, you will be debt-free by August. So when he said that at the beginning, I was like, well, I mean, you got to talk with my boss, right? Because I'm gonna need some multiplication, if you will, right? Like multiplication of the bread and fishes, multiply my checks, right? And so we're praying, but towards the end of July, if there was something that I knew, I was just convinced, is that was going to happen, that we were going to be debt-free. I didn't know how. I didn't know if I was going to get another job or if I was going to get a promotion. And to be honest, none of that happened. But August came, and supernaturally, stuff started happening with our debt where it was reduced to zero. And to this day, stowing boxes has been the most productive part of my life in ministry, in money, in general, in my relationship with God. But it wasn't because I stowed boxes. Because, see, human mentality would be like, and so how are you stowing these boxes? Because I also have debt and I might want to access that. It has nothing to do with how I was stowing. It was nothing to do with where I was working. It has everything to do with where I was positioned. It has everything to do with where I was shampooing myself, if you will, right? If you just position yourself to abide, God will take care of the rest. And to this day, it's unexplainable how it happened, but I know who did it. And that's all that matters, is that he gets all the glory. That he gets all the glory and all the honor and all the praise through our life. But you start to hope again. Proverbs 10:28, and I'll finish with this. The hope of the godly result in happiness, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing. So the hopes of the godly result in happiness. What that means is, the word godly means is righteous. And what righteousness means is in right standing. And what that means is in the right position. When you position yourself, you get to hope. And those that are positioned correctly will end up in happiness. That is a promise you can take to the bank. That is a promise you can take the rest of this week that you can chew on. As I abide, as I position myself, as I enter in, I don't know how, I don't know what's going to happen around me. I really don't know much. All I know is I have him. And when I have him, I have his joy. See, Jesus can produce a joy that the world cannot take away. Jesus positions you to receive what the world cannot give you. And Jesus will place you in a plan that the world cannot stop. When you are positioned in him, it's like you're bulletproof, you're Satan-proof, you're attack-proof. It's not that you can't be attacked, but the attacks will stop working because, hey, you can take the car, you can take the boat, you can take whatever it is, but you can never take what he has given me. And that's where I'm sustained. See, that's why Paul in Acts chapter 27, they're going through this huge storm. And Paul's there and he's like, hey guys, I just got finished talking to God and I know we haven't eaten like in 11 days and it's terrible and I don't know how, but God has told me that he's gonna keep us safe. So everyone was like, well, praise God. It's like, a side note here, he did say we're gonna lose the boat. You're like, what? This is Acts chapter 27. He's like, we're going to lose the boat. That's not God. No. See, God is supernatural where he doesn't need material things to sustain you. You know, when you are sustained by him and when you have him, man, your bank account could say something different. Your life could say something different. But if you have him, listen, you are positioned for his greatness. And you are positioned to give him glory. And I think that is the call of our life, is to glorify him through our life. I heard a minister say the other day that God is most glorified in you when you are most satisfied in him. When you learn to be satisfied in God, that is when the miracles start to happen. When you learn to have joy in Him, to abide in Him, to abide, abide, abide.